Hello and welcome to another screencast from eDesign 360. This is your host, Ames Brown, and today we're going to be continuing where we left off before on instructional module development. Before we explore the development of scenes, and today we're going to be exploring the development of interactive learning processes that we typically call assessment, quizzing, testing, and so on. So if we look here on the screen, we see a typical overview of what's called item development in assessment, where we have a question and we have item choices to be made. And then typically there would be some sort of form that would look like this, where you have some type of bubble mechanism to fill in or click on if it's an online assessment. But we have an awful lot of potential for learning that's being wasted in this type of an approach. So right at this moment, when you are reading an item and deciding on what the correct answer is, there's a great deal that's going on in your brain. If we look at here, this simulation of your cerebral cortex, your cortical sheet, and thinking that's going on, where we have a lot of activity going up and down the pyramidal neural columns in your sheet. And here's another depiction here where we see the actual firing across the synapses that make up the neural traces of your thoughts. And when you're accessing your memory, this is what is going on. So this is the perfect time to be maximizing learning. And unfortunately, with this type of an approach here, it could be that you're maximizing the learning of something incorrect. Because that's maybe what remained as the end result of your thinking. And it's not until much later, if that actually happens, if you actually get back the score and actually can look at what the wrong answers were and actually think them through. But still, that's quite a bit of time since the real maximum neural activity was occurring right at this learning moment. So we're going to look at an approach that's a little different than this, where we can maximize the power of an instructional module to work with interactive learning feedback and interaction. So let me bring up Flash here. And last time we were looking at the structure of scenes, where you have different scenes that make up an instructional module. And one of the scenes we had was quiz review. So you can also have interactive questions that might occur at different points during a lesson, where you're just helping to trigger recall and reflection and rethinking what was just covered a moment earlier, as opposed to something which might be a little more summative later on. So what we want to do is develop dynamic feedback right at the time that you're making a cognitive decision about an answer to a question. So if we look at how this little demo model works here, we begin And we have some directions. And then we have some sort of question up here, and we have various items to choose from in terms of our answer. Now, when we click on these, we can get custom feedback that is associated with each answer. So you can see that in this template context here, the third item was the correct response. And of course, what makes this interesting is what kind of custom response you develop. And we can go on. So we have a second question, and in this case, the second item would be the correct response, and you would have a custom response here. So there is a rationale usually for why a choice is given in terms of if it's an incorrect choice, that certain cognitive processes go into play that would result in that answer. And so if you are a good instructional designer, you can come up with a custom response that helps the learner or user understand what was wrong with making that particular choice, as opposed to making what was the correct choice. So let's look at how this works. Basically, what we need is a type of field. If we look in properties here, a type of field which is called a dynamic text field. Now, every field in Flash is either one of three types. It's either static text, dynamic text, or input text. And when you're developing content for an instructional module, that's static text in most cases, or equivalent to the way that you put information on a word processed page or you put information on a PowerPoint slide. In this case, we're having programmatic feedback, so we need to use a variable to actually put a text string as a response in a dynamic text field. So that's the core, well, one of the core elements that makes interactive learner feedback work is that you're using a dynamic text field. And the other is that you've given a variable name. As you can see down here in the properties panel, all the way at the bottom, you have a field called variable. In this case, to make it sensible in terms of development and programming, I'm keying my variables to the number of the question. So I call this Q1 for question 1 underscore feedback. And then if I go to, let me make the timeline a little bit larger here. If I go to the next question, here in the variable field for, again, a dynamic text field, I've coded this as Q2 underscore feedback. So now we have to give information to that variable so that it appears here. And this we do on each button. So if I look at the button and I go into my actions for that button, I can see for that first item response, I've got a var statement to define a variable, var, Q2 underscore feedback, that's the name of the dynamic text field, equals, and then in quotes, and ending with a semicolon, inside the quotes I have the content that I want to appear in that dynamic text field as my custom feedback. So here I just have a generic template form, first custom response, but this could be the equivalent of a whole paragraph in terms of the response that is put for that item. And if I look here, It's the same format for, this is going to be the correct answer in this context. And I go and look at the action script on that. And here I have var q2 underscore feedback. Again, that's the name of the text field down below on the stage, equals. And the only thing that I'm doing differently here is I'm indicating correct. I'm indicating it boldly. And then I can have a custom response to reinforce why that was correct. And I can go on and look at the next item here. And in this case, again, still q2 underscore feedback, right? And this would be my third custom response as to why that particular item is the wrong response and how to think about it. So you're doing the same approach for all your items. You're using the same var name, right? So it's var, and then what is the variable we gave this dynamic feedback area? We gave it q2 for question 2 underscore feedback. If I look at the previous frame, you can see here, this one had a different variable name, q1 underscore feedback. And these items here, when I look at the script on each button, were labeled var for variable, q1 underscore feedback, and then the response. Right? So the response is inside the quotes, everything we want to appear there, and as you do with any statement, usually in programming, you end with a semicolon. So on release for the button, and then the contents of the var q1 underscore feedback, the contents of the variable q1 underscore feedback, that inside the quotes here, will then be sent down to the q1 underscore feedback dynamic text field here. So a few things to remember about formatting dynamic text fields. When you click on the field and you look at some of the other characteristics, I mean, of course, the most important is that variable name down there, but you also want to think about the font and the size in which it's displaying, and also the color. So in this case, I've color-coded it to a blue, which is the same blue as the buttons that you choose here. So that associates it with making that decision and helps to distinguish the interactive learner feedback from the actual green choices and question on here. Two other things to think about. Down here, if you choose selectable, that means that when the Flash program is run as a Swift, that people can actually highlight the text. It's not just graphic text. And if you select to render the text as HTML, that means that you can apply some interesting formatting to it, which is something that we'll cover in another episode. So here we have a very, very powerful means for providing dynamic, interactive learner feedback throughout the module, and also in sections that are related to summative review. So in the next episode, we'll be exploring how to move beyond using just text-based questions and get into the fascinating aspects of adding images and graphics as responses for items and adding audio as responses for items. So think about adding interactive learner feedback. This has been eDesign 360. Join us again soon.